Mustafa Sajjad Haider's poem Kaun Hoon, or Seer, Good News, offers a chillingly ironic look at how the sky itself has been weaponized to keep people in a state of perpetual fear and submission. It's a critique of social control that feels incredibly modern, despite drawing on the ancient human reaction to solar and lunar eclipses. The poem doesn't just describe these events, it frames them as tools for a power structure that thrives on keeping the masses in the dark, both literally and figuratively.
That irony is the sharpest tool in Haider's shed. By repeating good news throughout a poem that details the psychological imprisonment of a society, he's highlighting the grotesque nature of how enlightenment is often repackaged as a threat. Historically, celestial events were seen as omens of divine wrath. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, a solar eclipse wasn't just a shadow, it was a bad omen that put the king's life at risk. They would actually appoint a substitute king to be killed, just to fulfill the prophecy and keep the real ruler safe. Haider taps into that deep-seated ancestral dread, but gives it a political edge.
The poem mentions astronomy as a threat that needs to be countered. That seems like a very specific choice. It's as if the seer, or the leader in the poem, understands the science, but chooses to use superstition instead because it's more effective for control. If you explain that an eclipse is just the moon passing between the earth and the sun, you lose the power to make people dance in fear. But if you call it a sign of divine anger, you can demand obedience, gold, and silver.
It's the classic tension between the observer and the observed. According to historical records from the Smithsonian, even after figures like Anaxagoras in the 5th century BCE figured out that eclipses were just shadows, the political utility of the omen didn't disappear. Christopher Columbus famously used his knowledge of a lunar eclipse in 1504 to trick the indigenous people of Jamaica into providing supplies. He told them God was angry and would turn the moon red as a sign. When it happened, they were terrified. Haider's seer is operating on that same frequency. The good news isn't for the people, it's for the person holding the almanac.
Let's look at that cycle of fear the poem describes. It's not just a one-time thing, it's a loop. The people dance, then they fear, then they're given good news of a reprieve, and then the next eclipse comes. It suggests that power doesn't just want a fearful population, it wants a population that's constantly off balance. If people are always waiting for the next sign in the sky, they aren't looking at the hands of the people ruling them on the ground.
The poem calls it astronomy being the enemy because science provides a predictable, repeatable framework. Superstition, on the other hand, is arbitrary and requires an interpreter. You need that seer to tell you what the darkness means. NASA's historical database shows that civilizations like the Maya and the Chinese were actually very good at predicting these cycles, but that knowledge was often guarded by the elite. In the poem, the irony of good news suggests that the seer is celebrating the fact that the people don't understand the cycle. Their ignorance is his job security.
There's a material side to this too. The poem mentions gold and silver being given as rewards. It's a transaction. The people pay the seer to fix the sky or to intercede with the gods. It turns a natural astronomical event into an economic engine for the ruling class. We see this even in the medieval period. As the University of Rochester's research points out, eclipses were used to predict everything from famines to the birth of kings. If you can claim to predict the disaster, you can claim the credit for saving everyone when it inevitably ends.
That's exactly why the refrain, "Seer, good news," is so biting. It's the insider's view. The narrator is basically saying, hey, look at this great opportunity we have to manipulate everyone again. It reminds me of the Battle of Halys in 585 BCE. Herodotus writes that a solar eclipse broke out in the middle of a battle between the Medes and the Lydians. They were so spooked they stopped fighting and made peace. While that might seem positive, it shows how an external misunderstood event can override human agency. In Haider's poem, that lack of agency is the goal. The masses are described as being lost in the manipulation.
It feels like a commentary on the fragility of enlightenment. We think we've moved past this, but the poem suggests these structures of deception are remarkably resilient. Even today, you see conspiracy theories or signs being used to rally people around specific leaders. The technology changes, but the psychological lever, fear of the unknown, remains the same. Haider is using the seer as a timeless archetype for anyone who benefits from public anxiety.
The poem's structure itself mirrors that cyclical nature. The repetition of the refrain acts like the eclipses themselves. It keeps coming back, reinforcing the same dynamic. It's a very clever use of poetic form to illustrate a political point. He's essentially saying that until we stop looking for seers to explain the world to us and start looking at the science, the astronomy that the leaders fear, we'll be stuck in this loop of paying for our own liberation from a threat that was never real in the first place.
The idea that truth is a threat is one of the most powerful themes here. It's not that the truth is hard to find, it's that it's actively suppressed because it's unprofitable. The good news is a lie that sells better than the boring reality. It's a pessimistic take on human nature, perhaps, but it's an urgent warning. If you're being told that a natural event is a personal message to you, you should probably ask who's delivering the message and what they're getting out of it.
It's the ultimate irony that good news in this context means another chance to deceive. It turns the concept of a prophet on its head. Instead of bringing light to the people, this seer is managing the darkness. And the fact that the people are dancing shows that they've been conditioned to participate in their own exploitation. They're celebrating the very thing that keeps them in fear.
In the end, Kaun Hoon is less about the sky and more about the ground we stand on. It's a call to recognize the patterns of manipulation that use fear as a currency. By unmasking the seer, Haider is inviting the reader to become their own observer. The real good news would be the day the people no longer need someone to tell them why the sun went out.
That's the ultimate takeaway. True enlightenment isn't just knowing the facts, it's recognizing when someone is trying to use those facts, or the lack of them, to control you. Haider's irony is a wake-up call to stop dancing for the people who profit from our fear of the shadow.
It's a powerful reminder that the most dangerous eclipses aren't the ones in the sky, but the ones that happen in our own minds when we stop asking questions. Share this episode with someone who enjoys dissecting the intersection of literature and social critique. Mustafa Sajjad Haider's